I'm going to caveat this because I'd like to get into a little bit of like education as like a subject broadly. But I remember there's a writer who I really admire, who I followed, who tweeted out once. He's like, the minute you start having ideas about how to reform the education system, that's when you need to pause and reevaluate everything you're doing because you may be going in a kind of megalomaniacal direction or something. So with that caveat, I do think obviously we need some kind of an education system, and it definitely will have flaws. And one area is like, do we just going back to skills training, do we just not have the skills or the knowledge of how to engage with our political system properly? Like, are people just not trained to do democracy the way we have it, this constitutional republic? So, I mean, it's an intricate framework that's been created where a lot of responsibility was put on the people. I mean, the people are the sovereign in the political theory of this system. And the sovereign means you comes with a lot of responsibility. And you're supposed to like do something, be very actively engaged in the political process for the system to work. And do we just not know how to do that? Just before you jump into that, there's this one piece of research that this organization called Unite America. Maybe you've heard of them. They put out this thing called the primary problem, which I read a couple of years ago, and it just totally shifted my whole perspective. At least with the legislature, with Congress, the real elections happen in the primaries, and it's like 10% of the voting population votes in the primaries. I think they calculated some number. I don't know if it's changed, but it's something like over 80% of congressional districts are pretty much captured by one party. Like they're going to go one way no matter what, which means the candidate that that party elects is going to be the congressperson for that district. Actively, 10% of people are voting for over 80% of our lawmakers. And it's like, and there's so many other things. There's your town hall meetings that are happening. There's just a variety of things that go into like doing democracy and participating as the sovereign beyond just voting in the general. And have we just like forgotten how to do that as a society? And how do we, if so, how do we fix that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing we talk about a lot on the show is that, and that's something that's changed over time. We've that it used to be about half the districts were pretty competitive. And like you say, now it's gone down to, yeah, is it 20% or less maybe? And 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 that has also contributed to the polarization and the extremism in Congress as well, right? Because you can have a more extreme candidate take those because they can't lose. Basically, they're not going to lose. And so you get these more extreme candidates, and that's just been an escalating factor over recent decades that's gotten worse, right? So that is more of this cascading problem, right? So then that creates this, that creates more fragmentation, that creates more division, that creates less chance of getting things done. And yeah, so we've got a lot of things going against us right now. And I think, I love the topic of education, even though I'm not an expert about it. And like you say, like anytime you're thinking about fixing it, you probably need to shut up. But it's such an important thing to me. Right? I would love to see more civics. I would love to see more description of our government, and also just like appreciation for what we have and what it took to get it to build these institutions. Because I think this idea that there's such a meme out there that we can just tear all these down and build better ones. It's like it's the same thing. If you're thinking about tearing down the institution, you probably also need to stop and figure out what these institutions are and how hard they were to make. Things have been so good for 75 years that we also don't realize how bad things can be when you don't have those institutions. And I would like to see more education about that, like, more just understanding for an appreciation for what we have. But yeah, and then understanding of the basics of our republic, as you say, and how our government was designed to work, or more or less designed not to work, right? And it's really hard to make it work because, like I said, you need that electorate to participate, but you also need people to get in a room with people they disagree with. Like that's fundamentally critical to how our government was designed to work. You have to be able to get into a room with people you disagree with and work things out.